Exotic plants from A to Z, from seed and leaf to reality. Lowland Nursery, we grow from here to there. Hard to find, just get easy. Lowland Nursery.com.
Wet everything down for a second. What we'll do is just get this out here. Hi, I am Joakim Coveney. You are here at Lowland Nursery. Today I am going to cut this Philodendron verrucosum Columbia Dark. This is a plant that I have had for probably, I would say more than 10 years at this point. You can see that it's a very dark leaf with bright green veins on the front. This is a newly open leaf, and you can see the veins are extremely bright. This is the way they open and unfurl. Here you can see the wine red color on the back with the bright green veins. This variety has quite a bit of this lime green color bleeding into the red. So that really makes this a really just super stunning variety. As the leaf ages, these parts you can see here with a younger leaf, this part darkens to a near all black color that's even has like this iridescent look to it. Another thing about this particular plant is you can see the leaf is actually a little bit elongated. It's kind of spade shaped, and up at the top here it has this gap that's always open. Other verrucosum types, they'll go ahead and overlap the lobes up at the top here, but this one has a fairly wide open gap. Here you can see another one of these features that just makes this plant so sought after and popular, and that's this really fuzzy stem here to the leaf. This entire petiole here becomes just covered in these hairs. This particular variety also kind of gets this copper colored stem to the leaf here. A lot of other varieties are bright lime green. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and propagate this Philodendron verrucosum Dark Columbian, and that's gonna entail cutting the plant up into segmented pieces with the nodes intact, and I'm gonna go ahead and show you how I go about that. So this is a plant that's actually been prepared for this. There's been several things that I've done for it over the last couple weeks. It shot past the top part of the pole, which I usually allow a little bit. This plant has been given a regimen of both fertilizers and micronutrients, as well as I've made sure that over the last few days it's been really well hydrated. It should be in top shape to go ahead and cut for propagation. The first thing I'm going to do, because this is kind of floppy and loose, I'm going to go ahead and tie a few of these, even a leaf stem here, together loosely to kind of keep these from breaking or snapping during this process. It's going to be imperative that I cut exactly at the right spot. And of course, if these things tend to break on their own, they never break in the right spot. We are gonna look for a lower point to cut on this plant. If we look down here, we actually have 3 stems running this, but we are going to cut 2 of these stems. So down here, we're trying to find a good spot that leaves the plant with enough energy to recoup from this and to come back quickly and in a strong way. One important thing here is that I've cut this plant before for propagation. Once a node such as this has been spent and used, because this node here activated and shot this run up that I then cut, this node here is spent. So I have 2 spots now that I'm going to have to find a cut point. This younger run here is going to be left alone to grow. Turns out that both of these larger runs are actually both originating off of this one original. So they split here. One runs up the one side, one runs the other. So that makes it pretty easy. So what we'll do, I want to make sure that I maintain 2 runs still. So if I cut here, that gives me this and then 2 good nodes to activate from once I cut this. That'll give the plant either this spot or this spot to come back from. This will ensure that I have a future plant. What I'm gonna do is just leave this here so that I know that that's one of my cut marks. Now what I need to do is I need to find the second run. The first run we found our cut point on. Now I need to find it on the second run. And that second run actually starts in the back here. So this leaf here is a good leaf. And there's a leaf in the back here. So 1 leaf, 2 leaves. So I'm gonna make the second cut point right here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mark the second cut point with a twist. That way I know exactly where to cut and there's no confusion later. Now, with these top cut pieces, these are really, really special. The idea behind a top cut piece like this is to get enough so that the plant survives and it has enough energy to keep going, to keep pushing that leaf. Because this top cut piece, it's a growing plant. It's not gonna slow down. It's got a leaf formed in there, and if you do this right, that leaf will go ahead and pop in a couple weeks, and this plant will keep growing. This particular plant here has 2 growing points that we're gonna cut. Both of these are really in a good stage. Sometimes in order to ensure the survival of this, I actually have to give it 2 nodes. If there's not enough root development here, or there's not enough development in this leaf, I have to give it that second node. But in this case, because I've been throwing a bunch of water on this plant constantly to make sure that these roots were going, that's paid off now. So I can go ahead and cut these and just go ahead and root those right away. And those will be perfect growing points. I shouldn't have problems with either of these leaves. There's really not a need to mark the top cut pieces because there's really no confusion. They're going to be single node cuts. you never want to start cutting from the bottom because your whole top piece can become loose. Now I'm going to go ahead and actually cut the plant, and the way that I always prefer to do that is with a razor blade. You really want to avoid any kind of a scissoring action. You don't want to use scissors or even pruning shears, because a scissoring is still kind of a crushing action, especially right before it cuts. There's pressure, and that bruises all around the stem. So in order to avoid that, a cutting action with a blade is much better. Something else to add is make sure when you're doing a stem cut like this on an entire adult plant, make sure you use a brand new razor blade each time. I'm gonna cut about 2 inches underneath the node. That will give me plenty of node, and I'm gonna bend it back just a little bit, and we'll see if this small little razor blade does the job, and it seems to be doing so. Beautiful. Here's our first top cut piece. New leaf that's forming, old leaf, so what we're going to do is we're going to set that into the bin here to scab over, and we'll do that for about 30 to 60 minutes, at which point we'll go ahead and give it a soak in some nutrient solution, and then this one will go straight to getting potted up. Let's cut the second piece. All right, here's the second top cut piece. We're going to repeat the same process. Arch it back just a little bit, and here we go. Nice clean cut. We're going to set this in here to scab over, and we'll continue cutting the mid-section pieces. Actually, on this one, what I'm going to do is to speed the process up. Because of the distance in between the nodes, there's going to be a lot that has to get eliminated. So it's only the final cuts that are going to need to be razor bladed. So I'm going to use shears, and I'm going to cut completely in the middle of each section. To remove the nodes. Here's our node. I'm just going to go ahead and do the final cuts because I don't need this much stem in either, whether these are going to be water rooted or go directly into soil. I don't need that much stem. So a little bit of stem was removed, leaving about 1.5 to 2 inches on both the top and the bottom. And so this is a mid-cut piece. With roots started like this, once these type roots go into some chunky cocoa coir mix, they'll take right off. So on this piece here, this is the first one that we're encountering that's actually rooted into the coconut fiber. And the way that you just have to kind of do it is just real gently work them and try to save as much of the root, if not all of it. And as you can see, this is the result of having something to climb. This side here was exposed to the air and it was reaching out. And on this side, this is the difference between giving it something to actually sink its roots into to climb versus just even attaching it to a bamboo pole or something like that. You'll get this same effect. You can see there's the node. This is a really nice mid-cut piece. This will push a node in just a matter of a couple weeks, and the parent leaf is in really, really good shape. You can see both the front and the back are pretty flawless. So this is going to make a great plant. Put that in here to scab over. Alright, you can see there's the node. This is a really long space in between the nodes, so we're just going to use these shears to get that loose. This one is one that was also attached with the roots, so gotta kind of work them loose. Now, one thing you really got to be careful with when you're doing this is you're actually better off cutting off a root rather than having it rip out, because if it's going to rip out anywhere, it's going to let go right there at the base where the root connects with the stem, and that usually also pulls a little hole along with it. That little hole tends to get infected, and the cutting tends to struggle a little bit more when that happens. So I really try to make sure that if it's getting to a point where I think I might pull it out at the base of the stem, I just cut the root. The other thing I do is when I'm working them out, I'm holding on to the base of the root. So the pulling is actually done from here, from my fingertip on out. But this is really another perfect mid-cut piece. The fuzzy petioles still in perfect shape. Leaf is flawless on the front and the back. It's got some really great new root growth, and here's a really cool thing. Right there, that's the new node. That's what's going to activate. That's what's going to be the new leaf. So that's what this whole thing, that's what that's all about. Here's another good one. Nice roots. Here's another nice node. Looks good. Put it in there, let her scab over. This is a good example of before I got these coconut or poles that they could actually climb, that they could actually sink their roots into. I had it strapped to some bamboo. I had it just tied to the bamboo. So you can see this is the difference between the roots not having anything to sink themselves into and just scrambling on top of, you know, something tied to something. But this is still a perfectly good node. You can see the node is right there, still nice and green, perfectly good. This cutting just has to develop some new roots. Now we're down to our very last cut. You can see right there is our signal for the last cut. So this is going to be the last piece. Now, after I remove this piece, this is how the plant is going to be left. I left a couple of leaves for each of the runner nodes that we just cut. So this plant has plenty of new energy. It's got plenty of leaves to go ahead and come back from this. Generally, within about a month or so, I see new growth on on both of the nodes that were cut. In the meantime, I get to grow out all these little baby verrucosums we just made. Now that this plant's been cut, I'm gonna go ahead and stick it back in the shade where it's gonna get a little bit less sunlight than normal. What I'm gonna do is, for the moment, I'm gonna go ahead and just put it back here in place because it'll be fine for the afternoon. Tomorrow I'm probably gonna go ahead and move it outside, stick it somewhere in the shade under the trees, and give it a couple weeks of rest. All right, so hi Lily. Hi. We've got the Philodendron verrucosum dark Columbia cuttings that have been sitting here for probably almost, I'd say, about an hour at this point. They should be really well scabbed over on the ends. One of the things you want to watch is, especially in the growing points, you want to look for a loss of pressure in the leaf. Like these midsections still look, you can feel that they're losing a little bit of their kind of rigid structure, and you can kind of see it in this leaf here, which means that they're ready to go into water. The end is actually dry to the touch. It's scabbed over. It's good to go. From here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them a soak in some reverse osmosis water mixed with a little bit of a concoction of some light fertilizer solutions and so forth, to kind of give them a little bit of a umph in their start, kind of kick starts them a little bit. Remove the cuttings and we'll use this bin. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take this bin and I'm gonna soak these same cuttings in it. I'm gonna go ahead and add some water to the bin, and I'm just adding a small amount so that I can add my different components. Thank you. We'll add a little bit of Super Thrive as just kind of a shock treatment. It's got vitamin B1 in it. I'm gonna go ahead and add just a few drops of a micronutrient solution. Add just a little bit of some kelp fertilizer. And last but not least, I'm gonna add just a little bit of a rooting fertilizer, which is actually a flowering, but that just will help to kind of give these guys a little bit of a boost. So now what I want to do is add some more water to this to dilute this out. There. So in the end here, we've really got a very, very weak solution of all the components that I added. But these plants, you know, they've had plenty of good nutrients over the last few weeks because I have babied the parent plant. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go ahead and soak these cuttings, the whole thing. Leaf, stem, especially the roots, and I'm gonna get definitely these growing points in there because they seem to be losing pressure the quickest. Can kind of go back and forth a little bit to make some room, but you want to make sure that the whole leaf wets all the way down. And what I'll do is I'll let these guys soak like this for probably about maybe 15-20 minutes. Like I said, there's no real need to have, it's not like these guys are really starved for nutrients or having issues. So this is just kind of something that I do as an extra boost, and I feel that it pays off. I get really good results with my cuttings this way. I get good, strong little juvenile plants that pop up from it. So it works for me. What we'll do is just take this and set it in the shade there for about 15 minutes and come back and get those guys out. And next step for them, that's potting. Okay, these guys should be pretty much done. So I'm just gonna go ahead and dump water, and I'm just gonna rinse them in some clean RO water. There, I'm gonna go ahead and get these guys rinsed in some reverse osmosis water.